Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
We celebrate Veterans Day on the anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. The armistice that began on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The timing of this holiday is quite deliberate in terms of historical fact. But somehow it always seems quite fitting to me that this day comes deep in autumn when the colors are muted and the days seem to invite contemplation. We're gathered at the National Cemetery, which provides a final resting place for the heroes who have defended our country since the Civil War. And at first might seem apparent, for all we can ever do for our heroes is remember them and remember what they did, and memories are transmitted through words, because what they gave us is beyond our powers to repay. And so when a serviceman dies, it's a tear in the fabric, a break in the whole, and all we can do is remember. It is, in a way, an odd thing to honor those who died in defense of our country, in defense of us, in wars far away. The imagination plays a trick. We see these soldiers in our mind as old and wise. We see them as something like the founding fathers, grave and gray-haired. But most of them were boys when they died, and they gave up two lives, the one they were living and the one they would have lived. When they died, they gave up their chance to be husbands and fathers and grandfathers. They gave up their chance to be revered old men. They gave up everything for our country, for us. And all we can do is remember. In a way, they represent us, these relatives and friends, and they speak for us as they walk among the headstones and remember. It's not so hard to summon memory, but it's hard to recapture meaning. And the living have a responsibility to remember the conditions that led to the wars in which our heroes died. Perhaps we can start by remembering this, that all of those who died for us and our country were, in one way or another, victims of a peace process that failed, victims of a decision to forget certain things, to forget, for instance, that the surest way to keep a peace going is to stay strong. Peace fails when we forget what we stand for. It fails when we forget that our republic is based on firm principles, principles that have real meaning, that with them we are the last best hope of man on earth. We're surrounded today by the dead of our wars. We owe them a debt we can never repay. All we can do is remember them and what they did and why they had to be brave for us. We must pledge to remember the things that will continue the peace. Today as never before, we must pray for God's help in broadening and deepening the peace we enjoy. Let us pray for freedom and justice and a more stable world. And let us make a compact today with the dead I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. In memory of those who gave the last full measure of devotion, may our efforts to achieve lasting peace gain strength.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's A Daily Dose, live with you every Monday through Friday. I hope you are doing well out there. And today is 11/11. 11/11. I gotta love that. I love that. It was interesting. If you watch that video, right when Reagan says the first 11 is 11 seconds into the video, almost like there's a hint being negotiated there. So happy Veterans Day to all my fellow veterans out there. I hope you guys all had a very calm, cool, relaxing, chill day, good dinner, and that people out there showed you their appreciation, because you are absolutely appreciated. I did like, I was writing a post today and I never posted it. I don't know. I just feel weird sometimes, like writing posts like this, but you know, I've been doing a lot of research lately, coming off of GART and trying to get back into the tuna things over the last 2 days. And I'm writing up a Substack right now pertaining to something I figured out today, thanks to Alpha Warrior calling me and like, yeah. But just doing a lot of research, a lot of thinking. But today was Veterans Day, and I was thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it, but I was writing a post about it because I wanted to say something. And I just said, you know what? I'll just read the post on the show, because I think that that's the best way to do it. Right. So I reflect a lot on days like this, and that's the truth. I truly do. And I think about my time in the military, the time I served with my friends and my brothers, and the things that we did and the laughs that we had. Right. And patriotism for me, and one of the reasons I served is because of patriotism. That means I think something different to me than I think it does to anybody else, just because it's my own understanding of what patriotism is. What this country means to me is what patriotism is. It wasn't something that I was taught in school. It was something I witnessed within my parents. An inherent love for a country they saw crumbling, yet they felt powerless to save. And it was really interesting growing up. I mean, I grew up in a small town, American flags everywhere. We had, the Fireman's Parade, Memorial Day Fireman's Parade. And then you go to the carnival and everybody, is getting ready for the 4th of July. And that whole time from Memorial Day to the July 4th is one big holiday celebration of America. But then in the backdrop, it's frustration with the government, frustration with the way this country is moving and pushing forward. And so there's this inherent love for our values, our traditions, for our inheritance of this country. But then there's also at the same time this powerless feeling that we cannot save this country because it is going in the wrong direction. And as I grew older, I came to understand that love of a country is not blind devotion. It is the courage to see its flaws and fight to preserve its founding truth. That our rights come not from the government, but from God. Today, on Veterans Day, faith in that truth is being tested. Corruption has infected our institutions, and truth is censored, and liberty stands on fragile ground. Peace remains our prayer. But when every safeguard of freedom has fallen to deceit, history reminds us of a hard truth. That military truly is the only way. Not for conquest, not for power, but to defend the republic and restore the nation once consecrated under God. And, I see Michael out there all the time saying military. If you guys, I see the Facebook chat over here, and I know that people on Rumble and stuff don't get to see that. But Michael's always like, military is the only way. Military is the only way. And one day I was like, no, it's not. And well, yeah, it is actually. And why I say that is because it's not just the military, it's the people. It is the formulation of patriotic Americans who have an innate love of this country, this inherent desire to see it succeed, that rise up. And so, I thank all the veterans out there tonight for your service. And I wish you guys all a great evening. Tonight's episode is Game Theory, episode 1053. A few different reminders before we get into this, because this is going to be good. We're every so often I begin to see trends, the narrative shift, and you say, "What the fuck just happened? 50-year mortgages? Like, this is absurd shit." But then you're reminded of things that you were talking about a few months ago, and you put two and two together, and you say, "Oh, I see what's happening here." We're going to talk about this. I'm completely against 50-year mortgages, unless it can be devised in certain methods. And we're going to talk about how this construct could actually work to the benefit of Americans. And I know that that is weird, but trust me on this. You're going to like this. Game Theory, though. Why is this show called Game Theory? Well, actually, I got an announcement. So DEF CON 0 tonight. So DEF CON 0 after this on Badlands Media. You can go search Badlands Media on Rumble. You can search it on YouTube. You should find them there. Badlands Media TV. You can go to the website, badlandsmedia.tv. DEF CON 0 at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight, myself and Alpha. We're going to be talking about a lot of the deltas today, which are economic in nature. 1913 Federal Reserve, the Rothschild central banks. We're going to be talking a lot about that. I'm not going to cover that historical aspect of it now. I'm going to be doing that tonight. And what we are transitioning into. I'm going to talk about what we're transitioning into tonight, though, at least on this show. So if you're going to miss DEF CON, it's okay, but please be there. We love the views. So DEF CON tonight. Let me see. It's Tuesday night. So tomorrow night, tomorrow I'm with Nino. I don't know if he's publishing it tomorrow or Thursday, but I'll be with Nino. And then Tammy with me Thursday. And then Friday, I got to hit Jeff up, but I know he's going to be doing a Conversations on the Fringe. I think he's got Carrie Cassidy on this Friday. So just throwing that out there. If anybody wants to check that out, I think Conversations on the Fringe is going awesome. So loving how Jeff is working that show right now. Game Theory. Game Theory is a mathematical study of strategic interaction among rational decision makers. It's used to analyze how individuals, groups, and entities make choices that depend on the choices of others. The game can represent anything from market competition to a military standoff, political strategy, or even evolution. There's various core concepts: players, strategies, payoffs, information, equilibrium. Equilibrium being the stable state where no player can improve their outcome by changing strategies unilaterally. The types of games that occur within game theory. There's books written about all of these guys. Cooperative versus non-cooperative. So cooperative players can form binding agreements. What I want you to think about there: tariffs, renegotiating the world, trade deals. Non-cooperative players act independently and may not trust others. Well, think about this: Venezuela, Iran. Think about what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. The second type of game is zero-sum versus non-zero-sum. Zero-sum game, one player's gain is exactly another's loss. Where non-zero-sum, all can benefit or lose together. You have simultaneously and sequential. Simultaneously, players act at the same time without knowing others' choices. Sequential, players move one after another, observing previous moves. Right now, we live in a world that geopolitically is I would say is a variation of cooperative, non-cooperative, zero-sum, non-zero-sum, but it's sequential in processing. Okay? Symmetric versus asymmetric. Symmetric, all players have the same strategies and payoffs available. Asymmetric, players have different resources, strategies, and information. We are obviously in a sequential asymmetric type of game that is both cooperative and non-cooperative and has various different benefits of zero-sum than non-zero-sum. Key equilibrium concepts here. Nash equilibrium. So a situation where no player can improve their payoff by changing their strategy, assuming others don't change theirs. Dominant strategy, a strategy that gives a player the best outcomes regardless of what others do. The Pareto efficiency. This comes up from the Pareto effect. No one can be made better off without making someone else worse. So our key equilibrium concept here for what we're seeing with the Trump administration would be the dominant strategy, a strategy that gives the player the best outcomes regardless of what others do. And we're seeing this play out massively. And this actually comes about in another aspect called power projection, of how power projection is utilized and thrown around, whether politically, economically, and that's going to be a big part of what we talk about next, and militarily. Classic examples, the prisoner's dilemma. Two prisoners must decide whether to betray each other or remain silent. The rational, self-interested choice leads both to worse outcomes than cooperation. The stag hunt models trust and risk in cooperation. If both hunt the stag, cooperate, they win big. If one defects for the rabbit, both lose. The battle of the sexes. Two players prefer being together but have different preferred activities. Coordination is key. The tragedy of commons. Individuals acting in self-interest deplete shared resources, harming everyone collectively. And so applications are endless, from economics, politics, military, AI and algorithms, biology. It exists everywhere in the world. And another way to look at this is decision-making processes based upon power projection. And I think that that's probably the simplest definition I can give on kind of the modern day game theory of how that's playing out in economics, politics, and military, is power projection based upon decision-making processes and counter decision-making processes. So why does this matter? Because we are seeing things happen simultaneously. So we talked about how processes on the geopolitical, geoeconomic side are happening sequentially. Well, with the Trump administration, though, when it comes to the taking out your enemies, to neutralizing your competition, we see things happening simultaneously. And what do I mean by that? All three movies playing at the same time. So just take the ideal concept of all three movies, and we don't have to name those movies or understand them, but just understand FISA-Gate. Right? So FISA-Gate playing at the same time. Declassification. You have the construction of a new model and a new system, a new forging of legislative policies and regulations that are going to lead the path forward. So you had the future being built. You had the past being taken care of, all occurring simultaneously right now. Right? So when we start to understand that Donald Trump right now is showing his hand. He is showing that he is a master at game theory. He is showing that he is playing 5D chess on a level that this world has never seen before. And trust me, I could sit here for an hour and tell you everything that Donald Trump has done since January 20th, 2025 to benefit the United States of America. Many people out there like, nothing's happening. No, guys, there is massive stuff happening. One of the main problems with a lot of the stuff happening right now is the mainstream media isn't touching it. The mainstream media really is not amplifying this or reporting this, but this is why we are so important. This is why the people winning over the information race, winning over the idea of information, we are the media, was so important because it fits directly into game theory. Because one of the important constructs within game theory is information. Leaders or anybody in charge of a situation or decision makers, they base those decisions off of the best available information that is available. Well, understanding that if the mainstream narrative is dominating and that is controlled by your enemy, then the decisions that are going to occur, whether in a sequential or simultaneous manner from your enemies, is going to be based upon the information coming out in the realm. And if that's controlled by your enemy, then your decision-making process is sequential but reactionary. That you fail to have the first attack. You fail to have an offensive. You are continuously on the defensive. And this is why it was so important to control the information domain. Let's listen to Tulsi Gabbard here real quick. I do believe this is an older video, but it's going to pave the way and understanding of what we are about to get into in this first part of the show. And I'll go ahead and play this.
We look at where we are now. Over the last several weeks, we've declassified and released documents that exposed how President Obama and leaders in the intelligence community knowingly manufactured a false intelligence document after the 2016 election was done, after the American people said, no, we want Donald Trump to go and be our commander-in-chief, not Hillary Clinton. And this manufactured document alleged that Russia aspired to help President Trump win the election with the aim of undermining his presidency and usurping the will and the voices of the American people who sent Trump to the White House.
Okay, so what's Tulsi talking about there? She's talking about FISA-gate, Russia-gate, however you want to look at it. At 38 seconds in, it changes everything. Barack Hussein Obama ordered the overthrow of the United States government on behalf of Hillary Clinton after the 2016 election. That's what we're talking about here. When Americans voted for Trump, the Obama machine refused to accept it. So they manufactured a false intelligence narrative alleging Russia interference to delegitimize the president the people chose. From Obama down, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Rice, Lynch, Yates, Monaco, Clinton, Schiff, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Mueller, Rosenstein, Wiseman, Jarrett, Rhodes, they built a shadow coup against a sitting U.S. president. This wasn't politics. This was treason. The so-called Russia collusion story was not a mistake. It was a calculated act of sedition to reverse an election and nullify the will of 63 million Americans. They called it protecting democracy, but they were truly overthrowing a republic. So important right there. And so I had to bring up a Q post, and whether you follow Q or not, it's irrelevant. This is relevant because this actually shows us the structure of what's happening right now. And I'm going to blow this up to 500%. So this is 1753, July 29th, 2018. We've talked about this one multiple different times this year. But foundation, bottom to top, layers, FISA equals foundation. FISA equals start. People are more aware of current events. Established link. Think criminal illegal acts to prevent and overturn presidential election to POTUS. Public awareness. Evidence introduced. Mainstream media covert link. Think sessions open statement. Leak investigations. How do you build a home? Here we go. How do you build a home? Foundation to structure is layers. Huber. Layers. Uranium 1. Iran. Human trafficking. Hating. Corruption. Etc. Etc. Logical thinking. Now, I also posted out there today. Remember what I said. FISA equals start. FISA-gate was done to cover up Obama-era treason. I've said this for years now. FISA-gate, when investigated, is going to be the start, the beginning, the foundation that everything builds upon. It goes backwards, it goes forward. What do we mean by that? Obama-era crimes, the treason the Barack Obama administration did when they were in office, selling off of SAP programs, special access programs, high-level military technology, classified secrets to various different adversaries around the world, and doing that through NGOs and universities. You have Uranium 1 scandal, the selling off of U.S. uranium supply. You have Fast and Furious. You have the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood inside the United States of America, the opening up the U.S. borders, allowing infiltration, China to buy up farmland, get into our critical infrastructure. We start to talk about all of these various different scandals, the creation of ISIS and ISIL in Syria as a rebel organization to go against the Assad regime that the United States continued to fund with taxpayer money and weapons that eventually took over Iraq and fought the U.S. military. All of this was the Barack Obama administration that brought this about. It was a 16-year plan to overthrow the constitutional republic of the United States of America and help to usher in a commie-fascist, totalitarian-controlled new world order, all ending with nuclear war with Russia and then a massive biological warfare attack, of which the people in the world would be forced after a massive depopulation efforts to join hands and sing Kumbaya fucking ya and form a one world government. Luckily, fortunately, There was great, amazing people in the world, the U.S. military, and people that went out there and they understood what was happening. They saw what was happening, and they made the right moves at the right time. They took back over the domain of information. They made the people aware. The people woke up for the majority of the part, and we began to take back our country 1 year at a time, one move at a time, to eventually we got the position of power projection to where we could start running the offenses against the globalists, against the deep state, against the evil in this world. If you didn't know, the statute of limitations on treason doesn't expire in a continuous criminal conspiracy. Obama-era crimes would have been past the statute of limitation to prosecute, but they did FISA, Rushgate, FISAgate. And then they continued 2018 elections, 2020 elections, January 6th, 2024 elections. They persisted all the way up to this point. Today, Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have delivered new evidence to Congress alleging the Clinton Foundation accepted donations from foreign and domestic interests seeking influence with Bill and Hillary Clinton while she served as Secretary of State. Today's Delta, November 11th, 2018, 2478 is the post. Let the unsealing begin. Let the declass begin. Let the world witness the truth. We are the people, justice under the law. No coincidences that is coming about right now. Clinton corruption files, Bondi Patel unleashed new evidence about former First Family Foundation. This is from John Solomon on Just the News. So, Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. I'll just pull this up because she had a big old white screen. You're wondering why my face is all lit up. It's because I'm reading this article. And we'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can read along with me. It's fun. Butterfly in the sky. I can go twice as high. It's in a book, so take a look. Reading Rainbow, right? I love that song. And I was thinking about this the other day, by the way. I know, whoop. But I was thinking about this the other day. It's like I still do jingles and commercials from the 1990s in my head every time I see a product. What stellar marketing they had back then. Because it doesn't happen today. But it still happens from products that I see from the 90s. Like, I don't want to grow up, right? Like, you have these things in your head. It's just they lost their touch with marketing. Anyways. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel have produced to Congress a new cache of documents showing how Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation collected donations from foreign and domestic interests seeking influence, raising fresh concerns that such evidence was kept from federal prosecutors who tried to investigate pay-to-play allegations against the former First Family a decade ago. Officials told Just the News that the documents were transmitted to the Senate Judiciary Committee in recent days and detail numerous instances of foreigners and even U.S. defense contractors seeking to curry favor with the Clintons through donations to their family charity, including when Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State. Bill Clinton was the U.S. president from 1993 to 2001. The officials said some of the evidence was flagged by whistleblowers who claimed such evidence was kept from a corruption investigation that was being conducted in 2015 by the Little Rock, Arkansas U.S. Attorney's Office before it was shut down by Obama administration's Department of Justice. The documents will make clear that there was an effort to obstruct legitimate inquiries into the foundation by blocking real investigations by line-level FBI agents and DOJ field prosecutors and keeping them from following the money, said one official directly familiar with the documents. Okay, this is the important part right here. It's not so much the documents themselves that are incriminating, yes, but it is. The documents will make clear that there was an effort by the Obama administration to obstruct legitimate inquiries into the foundation by blocking real investigations by line-level FBI agents and DOJ field prosecutors and keeping them from the money. Officials said they have been gathering the evidence for weeks and have dubbed the documents the Clinton corruption files. Bondi and Patel hope to make the documents public as soon as the end of this week once they work through some issues protecting whistleblower identities. Officials said they also expect new evidence to be released this week in the Arctic Frost investigation conducted by Jack Smith, including new contacts between special prosecutor who pursued Donald Trump and top officials like former FBI Director Chris Wray, and new details on how that probe sought to pierce the privacy of members of Congress by gathering their phone records. It's happening, guys. Like, This is D-class. But here's the key. We are still in the drip phase. And the things that have came out, whether it's the whistleblower of the ICA, the 2016 ICA, whether it's the emails from the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, basically naming Hillary Clinton, Julianne Smith, that are jumping on board with the Russian collusion hoax, the documentation of the Obama level meetings that occurred in August of 2016, to everything we are seeing about coming out already. John Bolton indicted, James Comey indicted. This is drip. Wait till flood. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to have massive levels of flooding with all of this. Well, how about this? This was news to me. I did not know this. Katie Hobbs is now being investigated. This is the governor of Arizona. Katie Hobbs is being investigated for bribery, fraud, and conspiracy and racketeering. The chairman of the Joint Legislative Committee has informed Maricopa County investigators that the Auditor General will assist in the investigation. This comes after the Arizona Republic detailed how state contractor Sunshine Residential Homes bribed Governor Katie Hobbs and Arizona Democrats with $400,000 in returns and got millions more in state money. Now that's interesting because it's another home building company that we know most likely has direct affiliations with potentially cartels and narco-terrorist states, right? So there's another aspect of drip. Now this was interesting, and I see a lot of people giving Donald Trump for this, giving Donald Trump shit for this. But this correlates directly back to game theory, okay? This is game theory 101. Syria is now a geopolitical ally to the U.S. So you have the Syrian president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, who is a former member of Al-Qaeda, who's now the president of Syria, after an Israeli-led coup forced Assad out. If you didn't realize Israel was doing Trump's dirty work. Yeah. But this is an Al-Qaeda member who's leading Syria. And I know Muslims bad. Yeah, I know. But I want you to think about it like this. Would it be a better situation for Donald Trump if Assad was still in power in Syria? No, wouldn't. That's CIA controlled right there, Assad. That's deep state controlled. So what about al-Sharaa being president of Syria, former Al-Qaeda member? I want you to remember this from the ideas of warfare. Sun Tzu. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Think what we're seeing on the side of the globalists. I've always talked about this, that we have this multi-headed hydra. And when you start to look at global power and global structure of power, that you have these various different heads that pop up. The body is the world. The body is humanity. It is the people being led, right? And you have these necks, these long necks, and the top of these necks are these heads, and these heads are factions and ideologies with an agenda. Factions of ideology with agenda, and they're all different, and they all want to control the majority. It's like a democracy at this level. Is that the weaker heads formulate around the stronger heads. And so they align with that, and then all the resources that are contained around that faction, that ideology, now are at the use of the power projectors. So if Donald Trump didn't move in to control Syria, and I want you to understand, to control Syria, someone else would. China would. Russia would. Iran would. Somebody would. But see, what he's done is he's put somebody in the power that he could easily remove. There's 1,001 reasons in the world that you could remove al-Sharaa. But instead, he's giving them a chance and opportunity, and he's producing a geopolitical, geoeconomic ally with Syria. What's going to happen to Syria over the next 10 years? It's going to be modernized. It's going to be westernized. It's going to be modernized. It's going to be built up into an industrial capital. I guarantee you. Why do I know that? Because when you start to have Western investment, Western capital in infrastructure move into your company, they ensure that you don't destabilize. And see, that was one of the biggest problems about the Middle East for a long time, is you had all of these figureheads, all of these various different factions that wanted to control the resource base of this area. And the name of the game was destabilization. The name of the game was removing the theocratic rule from those areas through warfare, through psychological and kinetic warfare, through asymmetric principles. Well, with al-Sharaa now in power in Syria, Donald Trump has a position of power over this region, which is huge and it's critical. And what you're going to see is you're going to see Western money, even Middle Eastern money, flow into these areas. The Middle East is going to become a center point of modernization. Why? Why not? When you begin to westernize this whole Middle Eastern region, destabilization is no longer an option. Internal class warfare or internal warfare begins to subside. Then ideologies, or I want to say just theocratic rule, Sharia law, things like this begin to fall away. Here's another one. We said this months ago. Washington's about to drop $500 million on a new military base in Israel, just 500 yards from Gaza. The plan, a massive outpost to house thousands of international troops overseeing a potential ceasefire. U.S. officials are already surveying land. Israeli insiders say this is the biggest foreign footprint since 1967. It flips decades of Israeli policy against foreign involvement and signals deep U.S. entrenchment in the conflicts. So, remember yesterday I was talking about Laura Loomer and how Laura Loomer's like, the U.S. needs to divest and stop giving foreign aid to Israel. Israel needs to become an independent. This is why she's saying that. She is the spokesperson for the IDF, for the Mossad, in my opinion. I don't want to get sued for libel. Don't get me started with that one. But what you're beginning to see is that Donald Trump is flexing, power projecting over Israel. The idea that Israel controls Donald Trump is absurd. If Joe Biden tried to put a military base in Israel, it'd be laughed at. It wouldn't happen. And since 1967, Israel has not allowed this and would not allow this. But why now? Why now is because Israel is aligning towards Donald Trump's vision for the future, vision for the Middle East. And this is a modernization of Gaza and the West Bank. This is the inflow of Middle Eastern and Western capital into these regions to build about a tourist paradise, to build out industry. Why? Because with modernization comes stabilization. If you want the Abraham Accords to honestly and effectively be long-lasting, you have to change that whole region's perspective. And see, this is one of the big problems that's faced in the Middle East right now. You have generations that have been afflicted by warfare, psychological, kinetic warfare, whether it's internal fighting amongst various different Islamic nations and tribes and religious factions, or whether it's with Western forces and Islamic forces, or the clandestine wars that are going on. Iraq, at the beginning of the new millennia, had over 1 million people killed from U.S. wars in their regions. Now you add in the tainted water supply, the tainted soil, the depleted uranium utilized there, the birth defects that caused about this. This is generational trauma that is projected in the Middle East as a methodology for warfare against the West. Why do they hate us so bad? They hate us so bad because of decades of warfare waged on their lands. So how do you begin to change or offset that mindset? This is really kind of what I think Donald Trump is doing. The key idea here is that it would take 2 or 3 generations to change that mindset, to begin to to mitigate that trauma, to build trust systems, right? Counterparty trust with Western nations. But there's an easier, more effective and efficient level. Is if you inflow mass capital into these areas, you begin immediately building, modernizing, westernizing. What I mean by westernizing is bringing Western, not only Western ideals, but Western businesses, banks, restaurants, tourist centers, hotels, all of this. When you start to inflow all that in there, people get jobs. They start making more money than they've ever made before. They get to have a quality of life that is 1,000 times greater than the quality of life that their generation and the generation before them ever had. That begins to shift that mentality immensely in the opposite direction. That you start to see these people change almost immediately within 5 years to the first generation, which then mitigates the effect of aggressive or of progressive warfare against those people who are investing in the infrastructure of your country. It's pretty fucking genius. Let me check something real quick. I wanted to go in here. Okay, so let me do this real quick. We're still online for this. Yep, we're about to transition. So I wanted to jump into these real quick. I wanted to get one of these bad boys out of the way and see if I can find this. And give me 1 second here. We got to pay the bills. I like Rumble, how it actually does this. This is pretty cool. And so with Rumble, we're going to be doing for all of our Rumble Premium. So this goes to everybody out there on any premium subscription. And now Rumble Premium will be included in this, is that we're going to start putting out Rumble Premium content as well with all of our other stuff. So just wanted you guys to know that so that you have that. And let me find one that is cool. Is this the one I like? Hold on a second. I don't want it. Like they have, oh, there we go. I like these guys. These guys are cool. All right. This episode is brought to you by ZipPix nicotine-infused toothpicks, a satisfying, discreet, and great tasting way to curb cravings anytime, anywhere. Perfect for flights, events, restaurants, or anywhere smoking and vaping are banned. ZipPix satisfies both nicotine craving and the hand-to-mouth habit with 6 long-lasting flavors and 2 milligrams or 3 milligram strengths. Proudly made in the US of A and one of the most cost-effective options out there. Not into nicotine? Try our caffeine or B12 infused picks for a boost. Zip more, smoke less. Visit ZipPixToothpicks.com and get 10% off your first order with code CREATOR. Must be 21 years of age or older. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. And if you are on Rumble, those links are in there. And if you are like, oh, that sounds really interesting, go to Rumble and click on those links on that profile so you guys can see that. And then let's jump right back into this. And yep, and you know, like my Boomer 246 giving you a shout out there, just said, and Syria has a lot of rare earth minerals. Yes, and resources are going to be a big part of this conversation here in the next few minutes. I wanted to definitely give a shout out to Lee Walden. Lee Walden, $5 Rumble ramp. Good evening, Josh and crew. Today, let's reflect on what the promise of America and the dark forces that are trying to destroy God's gift. That promise, stay frosty, Navy, Bless you, brother. Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much, Lee. Appreciate you. Mega Nuke gifting 5 subscriptions to the Red Pill Project. I hope everybody received those gift subscriptions and tunes into our premium content there. Daytar17 gifted 1 subscription to the Red Pill Project. Thank you so much, Daytar17. Appreciate you. And trying to get this down more and more. You know, sometimes, guys, I just start talking and I can't shut up and I forget to do simple things. But I have a note-based system. And I have a big old notebook that is full of stuff right in front of me on kind of how I'm supposed to do all this. So I'm going to be trying to stick to my notes, and hopefully that can lead us in the right direction here. All right. The Supreme Court has sided with Donald Trump, put SNAP payments on hold. Lower court activist judges were attempting to force the administration to pay out fraudulent SNAP benefits during the shutdown. SCOTUS has shut them down. What's her name? Kanji Jackson or whatever, the Biden appointed Supreme Court justice, is the one that made this ruling decision. That's huge. She said the government cannot pay money the government doesn't have. Number 2 is the executive branch has no power over the purse. So this also goes into like the whole idea of Donald Trump's a dictator. He's a tyrant. He's a totalitarian. Dude. If that was the case, the government would have been shut down. Just saying. But I'm glad the government did shut down. Not for all the people. Yes, there is DEF CON tonight. Not for all the people that lost money or whatnot. They're going to get a lot of back pay and stuff like this. But I'm glad the government did shut down because it brought a lot of eyes to what was really happening. So we talked about this a little bit yesterday. So Democrats shut down the government, not because of their people, not because of their party, not to try to win an election in New York, Virginia, or New Jersey, but they shut down the government because of expiring subsidies that the Republicans were not going to renew for big insurance companies. 8 Democrats broke the ranks to end the 42-day shutdown, but not before exposing the real game. This wasn't about principle. It was about protecting insurance industry profits worth $1.8 trillion in taxpayer subsidies. The numbers tell the story. Health insurers saw net earnings explode 216% since Obamacare passed. United Health, Centene, Cigna donated heavily to Kamala Harris while Trump got nothing. Here's the scam. 35% of subsidized Obamacare plans are never used. That's 12 million phantom enrollees generating pure profit for insurers at the taxpayer's expense. Companies admit 2/3 would drop coverage without government subsidies or government force insurance. The Democrats who finally voted to end the shutdown, Durbin, Fetterman, Rosen, Cortez Masto, Shaheen, Hassan, Kane, and King, they secured promises for ACA subsidiary votes while their party held the government hostage for their donors. Trump called it, the Democrats claim to be working for the little guy, but the Obamacare scam goes straight to their best friends in the insurance industry. And see, this is one of the problems when governments get involved with corporations, is they begin to align profit derivation for those corporations, which then bring back campaign kickbacks or job placement after working for the bureaucracy to these politicians and benefit not the American people. What we're going to talk about in a minute is a system that is a benefit to the American people. The House is to have a hearing on banning congressional stock trading in the next coming weeks. That's huge. It's massive. This is 5 minutes. I don't want to play the whole thing, but I do want you to listen to a little bit of what Bannon is talking about here.
Right, to socialize the risk, because remember I said all of this is about risk mitigation, to socialize the risk, and you guys keep all the upside. That has to stop. This is why young people don't believe in capitalism, because you know what? That is not capitalism. That's corporatism. So what young people in this country, being logical, have looked around. They haven't actually seen capitalism at work. They've seen crony capitalism, or they've seen corporatism with the devil take the hindmost approach. It has to stop. And it has to stop about artificial intelligence. If they're going to have, and we need somebody to sit there and go, hey, this is what the capital requirements are. This is how it rolls out over the next couple of years. Understanding that every projection I've ever seen never hits it exactly right. Of course, there's going to be perturbations. There's going to be changes. There's going to be sometimes misses. Sometimes you're wrong by years. But at least you have a general direction of the action you're taking today and how that, in your thinking, manifests itself in the future. So we just not, well, there's hundreds of billions of dollars now, not just for data centers, but to power the data centers. And who's supposed to finance that? You.
That's right. And this is a big part of what we're about to talk about. See, if crony capitalism, corporatism continues, which is more kind of quasi-fascism, if it continues the way it's been going, we will be enslaved by a system and we'll be paying for our own enslavement. But I think the Trump administration, the people he has in places of power, have a different idea. November 11th, 2022, 4962 is the post. Who are the silent thieves? Why are they manipulating you? How are they stealing your wealth? Bubble, crash, steal, lie, repeat. What is inflation? Monetary manipulation. Taxation without representation. Put an end to the endless. 1913. Q. Because that post has everything to do with what is happening right now. Now, I've talked about the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. And these are amazing ideas put forth by the Trump administration that Congress has not acted on, that the Trump administration outlined through executive order, of which is still being compiled by working groups bringing these things together. And my thoughts are that they are waiting for a super majority before passing legislation on this, because if they can do what I believe they want to do in 2026, and that's not only get a super majority of the House and the Senate, but also of 3/4 of the states, then they can pass a constitutional amendment. And this is where the next things are going to come into play. Number one is an internet or a digital bill of rights. And number two is a sovereign wealth fund that is constitutionally protected. And the laws are outlaid of which become immutable. This is what we need. I'd run for Congress on this shit. And so let's go in here. Grant Cardone telling it how it is. And I want you to listen to this if you are a homeowner, because he's right. I don't agree with everything he says here, but he is right.
Mortgage, if you're worried about it, you shouldn't be. 50-year mortgage is not the problem. Okay, it could be 100 years, whether it's 30 years, 15 years, 30 years, 50 years, 40 years. Pick your number, dude. The problem's not how long the mortgage is. The problem is the investment itself. It's the asset you're putting money in, okay? Look, a house is not an asset. It's a liability. This plane has a better chance of making me money than a house ever does, because it gets me someplace, right? It gets me someplace, it gets me there fast, it buys time. What does a house do? Okay, maybe over 30 or 40 or 50 years, maybe it appreciates enough to provide you and your family with equity. At best, that's a savings account. But if you took the savings part out of it, added inflation, you'd realize, dude, it's a shitty investment. It's a liability. So don't get all cranked up about whether it's 30 years or 50 years or...
So, what he's talking about there is a simple idea. It's an equivalence quadrant. Asset equals money. Liability equals debt. Pretty simple to understand. What is an asset? An asset is something that appreciates over time more than the original investment. A liability is something that you have to maintain to keep its worth, or that degrades slowly over time from its actual worth. A vehicle is a liability. The moment you drive off of that car lot, that vehicle immediately is reduced 15% in its purchase price. A house. Immediately when you buy a house, you don't have equity in it. It takes time to build equity up. But then if you start adding in all the maintenance and upkeep costs, all the homeowner's insurance, and then the idea that you have to continuously pay property tax on that house for the rest of your life, you don't truly own it, and it's not an asset that can truly make you money. Make sense? All right. So in that same post, I actually talked about one thing I would like to see with the Trump administration is if they're going to offer a 50-year mortgage. And by the way, let's break this down number-wise. I want to break this down number-wise because I think that this is important. And this was an idea, but this isn't the aha moment I had about this. There's actually an aha moment about this that's going to blow your fucking mind. Okay? So I asked a very, very Socratic method right here. 50-year mortgage chimes in, and I happen to agree with him to an extent. Below is a breakdown and also possible solution. Is a home a liability? Yes. Can it act as an asset? Yes, but not always. Is a 50-year mortgage worse than a 40-year mortgage? All mortgages are horrible. Here is a breakdown. 30-year mortgage on a $400,000 home. Mortgage payment approximately $2,500 and $2,528. Total paid over 30 years, $910,000. Interest paid, $510,000. Yes, that's true. A 50-year mortgage on a $400,000 home. Mortgage payment, $2,257. You would save $271 a month. Total paid, $1,354,000. Interest paid, $954,000 or $444,000 more in interest. You pay double for the home. Triple for the home. 30 years. You start gaining equity faster because more of your payment goes towards the principal earlier. 50-year, for the first 10 to 15 years, nearly all payments go towards interest, meaning very little ownership growth early on. The equity will grow slower in a 50-year mortgage. The upside only exists if you are lucky. What does that look like? If you had massive growth in a short term of your home, then you'll benefit from a 50-year mortgage. This is dependent on location, timing, and rates. Unless the Trump administration foresees a massive increase in single-family home values over the next 10 years, there really is no upside. Unless they can incentivize it. This is my idea of incentivization, right? What about debt fulfillment to sovereign ownership? One benefit would be the removal of property tax. This one option, if packaged with a 50-year mortgage, that would make sense. Take out a 50-year mortgage, meet the minimum property tax requirements. Once paid off, property taxes disappear, and a loyal title deed is issued to that person or that family. This would be a debt fulfillment equates to sovereign ownership. After fulfilling a half a century of obligation of paying the mortgage early off on a 50-year loan, the property should exit the tax and lien system entirely, and the owner should be granted a loyal title, absolute ownership free from levy, seizure, and taxation. This could even be packaged with a minimum term of property tax payments, like 15 to 20 years. This means if you choose to pay your mortgage off early, you can also prorate your minimum tax obligation. I would actually be down for something like that because, firstly, it's not about me. It would be about my children, that they would be inheriting a property that is tax-free, paid for. The only things that you need to put into it are maintenance and upkeep. You can use that as a rental property. Rent it out. You own the land, 2 acres. You can go out there. You can do things with those acres. It immediately becomes an asset that the government can't touch. I like that option. But I began to think about this. Donald Trump isn't a dumb man. Scott Bessent isn't a dumb man. These guys understand the system. And so I've been having a hard time trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. And you saw some news coming out today that the White House is pissed off at Bill Pulte for getting Trump to talk about a 50-year mortgage. These are smart men. And see, to understand why they're coming out and saying 50-year mortgage, you have to understand that they were talking about at the beginning of this month. This is why you would get a 50-year mortgage. Okay. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac could go public by the end of the year. Housing chief says, Bill Pulte, that it could mean what it could mean for your mortgage. Okay. So President Trump is opportunistically evaluating taking Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac public as early as the end of the year, according to Bill Pulte. President Trump made the right decision not to take Freddie and Fannie public during his first term, and this is an opportunistically evaluating and offering this time around, which could be as early as the end of 2025. Now, why is this important? I'm going to play this clip for you because it's important, even though this is not about mortgages. This is not about mortgages. But listen to what he says. Words matter.
Investing in America, $20 trillion. No country's ever done anywhere even near that, like a fraction of that. Biden did less than $1 trillion in 4 years. I did 20 trillion. We're going to do over 17 trillion in 8 months. By the time we end, we could do over $20 trillion. There's never, in China, no matter where you go, there's never been anything like it. We are building up something that's unbelievable. And a big part of that are the tariffs, because they don't want to have to pay the tariffs, because it's so unsustainable that they come and build the pharmaceuticals and the chips and all of the things. They're coming into the United States and they're building them. It's a miracle what's happening. We are building the greatest country in the world, economically, greater than we've ever been before.
Okay. So you got to remember, $20 trillion of liquidity coming into the United States of America. Tariff revenue. So Trump announced yesterday that every American, not every taxpayer, every American is going to receive $2,000 from tariff revenue. And it's called a dividend. What's the definition of dividend? Let's see here. I want to get the actual definition, not my interpretation. A dividend is a distribution of a company's post-tax profits to its shareholders, typically paid in cash, additional shares, or assets. And Trump said yesterday that every American is going to get a $2,000 dividend. He didn't say stimulus check, didn't say return, it's a dividend. How does that actually break down? Well, it's actually really simple. Is that a tariff is actually a tax, whether you realize it or not. Is that the nation states that these tariffs are waged on actually don't pay the tariff. The companies and corporations in the United States that are bringing those products in from outside are the ones that pay the tariff. And what they do is they offset that price of that tariff that they have to pay to the American people in the price. Now, there's various different tariffs for various different products. Not every American is going out there buying different tariffs or different products that have tariffs on them. So there's an unequal distribution. Basically, low middle class people are down here in the tariff spending and the amount of tax that they're actually charged on this. And then you have wealthier people that go up here on just higher things that are imported into the country that have higher tariff rates. The national average aggregate number is about I think it's about $800 to $900. So your average spending over the last year on tariffs that you put in a tax is about $800 to $900. Donald Trump is paying you a dividend of $2,000. What does that mean? The average American is getting back the $800 they spent plus $1,200 in profit. Now, who paid that $1,200 in profit? That was the wealthy people up here. That was the big corporations. That's capitalistic redistribution of wealth. Not communist, not Nasara Jasara. That's capitalist redistribution of wealth. You understand that? Okay? So now imagine $20 trillion flowing in. the companies that are involved in this $20 trillion coming into the United States, they have a prime investment in the United States of America. But do you think that the government's doing this for free? Well, no. We had the big, beautiful bill. We have land deals that are being renegotiated. We have regulations that are being lifted off federal land. We're allowing the extraction of minerals and metals and oil and LNG and all of this stuff that come out of the U.S. soil. And what happens is they have to pay money on that. Then they have to pay taxes and they have to pay leases. And then Trump's going in there and he's negotiating deals with these companies and corporations. He's going out there and he's saying, hey, $680 billion worth of oil is going to flow to Europe next year from the United States of America. What does that do? That causes those corporations to go out there and buy American land leases to drill, producing massive amounts of jobs. And then corporate tax revenue, and then lease revenue, and then royalty share revenue. Why? Because every asset taken out of the United States soil off of federal land is actually owned by the American people. And so then becomes a royalty tax that's involved in there. Well, where does that royalty tax go? It's going to go into the sovereign wealth fund. So $20 trillion of inflow capital into the United States of America, or liquidity into the United States of America. By the way, this is repatriation of money back to the United States of America. This is money that left the United States that's now flowing back in. Remember that inflation thing? Oh, yeah. So money's flowing back into the United States of America. So now let me break this down for you. I might have another post to kind of go in here. Well, actually, let's listen to Scott Bassett, only 23 seconds, because this is a part of the conversation that I'm about to get into.
We will take a close look at regulatory impediments to blockchain, stablecoins, and new payment systems. And we will consider reforms to unleash the awesome power of the American capital markets. Americans deserve a financial services industry that works for all Americans, including and especially Main Street.
Blockchain technologies. Oh my goodness. Blockchain technologies. Could it be that blockchain technologies are just going to rule and dominate the world that we live in? Yep. It's actually a very, very, very good idea that is going to completely dominate this world over the course of the next few years. Let me just go ahead and get one more of these out of the way, so we can drop this in there. And see, I only do the ones that I use, I like, right? Like, that's just how I work. Let me see here. I think that one. Yeah, we'll do them. That's fine. All right. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focused, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a golden spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. And always out there, if you're listening on other platforms, go to the Rumble profile, click on those links if you guys want to help support any of those guys out there. Now, let's jump back into this. G-Money. Me and G-Money had a few different conversations this week, and he's got me on a rabbit hole right now. He says the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrading using state-of-the-art Bitcoin technology. Now, I don't know if this video is AI or not. I think that some people were saying that this is AI. And actually, let me check the comments real quick. I know that people were saying that this video was AI. Couldn't find it. And I don't want to play something that's potentially AI because I could not find the source of this video. but it is being pushed around a lot today on X. But I'm just going to play this part of the video for you.
That behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after many?
So actually, this is actually him in his response to the Stablecoin and Clarity Act, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act. And so what's important about that is stablecoins. You're going to redefine how our financial systems operate. And this actually benefits you a lot. Now, Global Watchdog warns tokenization is the next financial time bomb. The world's top securities cop just dropped a quiet bombshell. Tokenization, excuse me, the shiny idea of turning real assets into blockchain tokens might be the next frontier of financial chaos. The regulator overseeing nearly every major stock market on Earth says tokenizing bonds, stocks, and funds doesn't erase old risks. It's create new ones. Think ownership, confusion, counterparty black holes, crypto-style contagion bleeding into traditional finance. In other words, Wall Street's blockchain efficiency dream might just be a faster way to lose your shirt. So the idea is that we're moving towards a tokenized world, but there's a lot of hard-pressed breaks coming on with this. And actually, I'm for this. I don't want a tokenized world. What I would like is various aspects of decentralized blockchains implemented where they matter and they can be used. Okay, so let's explain the 50-year mortgage. Let's explain what Trump's talking about here. We currently have a system based on debt, a fiat system. See, gold actually hasn't gone up in price, right? Gold is still just as valuable today as it was 100 years ago. The problem is the dollar lost value, okay? So the dollar lost value and gold's price increased. The idea here is that the dollar loses value slowly over time due to it being a fiat currency. A fiat currency means that it represents fractional reserve banking, is that more is produced on the basis of debt and no real backing of any real world asset. This is a problem. It goes back to the Q post that we just talked about. Who are the silent thieves? What is inflation? Monetary manipulation, taxation without representation. Put an end to the endless. What Donald Trump is setting up right now is an economic system that is capitalistic in nature, but with a certain few differences. The differences are that the profitability of the system, instead of flowing primarily to the corporations and the wealthy, is now redistributed with guarantees to the people. What do I mean by this? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac become public companies, okay? The United States of America, the government, will be the majority shareholder. Let's just say 51%. They will be the arbiters of the 50-year mortgage. As in, they probably won't let other mortgage companies or other banks issue these loans, just them. Which means that there's going to be an inflow of younger generational people coming in to get a mortgage because it's going to be, the requirements will be a little less, the money up front will be a little less, so forth, because it's a 50-year mortgage. The rates as well will be less. These people will come in and the housing market will boom. This will actually drive the price down because it becomes a buyer's market. So with that, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will have massive amounts of profits from years to come. Well, those profits in a public company get distributed to the shareholders. They're called dividends. So I want you to think about this here. Imagine taking out a 50-year mortgage at 2.2%, that $400,000 mortgage. At the end of the time, you're going to pay $955,000 in interest over a 50-year period, right? So let's assume that that's I think that's like $23,000 a year. Okay, 23. It's a little. It's like $18,000 a year in interest. Something like that. My math is not good right now. But what are you getting back? You are the American shareholder. The government is then going to pay you a dividend based on the profitability of the company that you just got your mortgage through. Oh. So wait. I'm going to have a mortgage that's $270 less than a 30-year mortgage. I'm going to pay more long-term interest over time, but yet I'm getting a kickback 5 to 15% the first few years, 15 to 25% 5 to 20 years, and then 40 to 80% back for the next 50 years. And then after 50 years, it's 100% return. In other words, you get all of your interest back over time. As the amortization schedule begins to decrease, the amount of revenue that you're deriving from that company shall increase as long as those markets stay consistent. Trump got the United States of America, the people of the United States of America, 10% of Intel. So when Intel does $500 billion worth of profit, $5 billion will be paid out to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which will then be sent out as dividend checks to the American people. So now you'd be receiving, let's just assume, and we're just using modern day numbers. Let's just do a hypothetical analysis here, okay? Let's just take tariffs, 10% of Intel, and Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. At the end of the year, you're going to get $2,000 per person in your household for tariff revenue. We're just using the numbers that we know of right now. Let's say with Intel, that's $500 per American citizen. So that's $2,500 now you're getting back from your government. And then with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, let's just assume that you're going to get another $2,000 per household. Okay? Or $2,000 per American citizen. Let's say that you have 3 people in your household. 2 adults, 1 kid. Okay? So what we just outlined there is $4,500 coming back to you, right? Per American citizen. In dividends. There's 3 people in your household. That's $13,500 a year that household would receive back. That's only 3 investment types. Imagine what happens with the royalties and land leases. Imagine what happens with that $20 trillion producing more investment capital flow. Imagine what happens as Trump negotiates more deals in the various different parts of corporations and businesses, including AI, quantum computing, and blockchain. Imagine what happens when he has Bitcoin attached to this, and there's profitability points taken out with Bitcoin, that Social Security moves to a sovereign wealth system. You can 10 or 20x that money right there, almost instantly within our current economic model. In other words, if we had a sovereign wealth system to where the people of the United States of America, when their resources are being utilized to produce wealth for companies and corporations, are getting a royalty exchange, kind of like the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Alaska, or they're getting dividends and paid to them from privately owned companies, publicly owned companies that are government organizations, you start to see that $2,000 turns into $4,000. $4,000 turns into $8,000. $8,000 turns into $20,000. $20,000 turns into $50,000. So how do you compensate for UBI, Universal Basic Income, which would be when job displacement comes due to artificial intelligence, right? Job displacement due to artificial intelligence. UBI in a communist or socialist model would say that the government is going to pay the people a universal basic income out of the taxes, which is going to be very minimal and basic, because the tax money, the generation of revenue, would have to come out of the operating budget of the government, and the government is always striving to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But with a sovereign wealth fund, strategic Bitcoin reserve in place, and Bitcoin's price guaranteed, if adopted, to skyrocket in value, because the supply of Bitcoin reduces over time, and it has a limited quantification and supply, and Bitcoin is derived specifically from real utilization of energy. It's a direct conversion of real energy into monetization. With that whole idea, then what you begin to see is that we are seeing a redistribution of wealth through capitalism directly to the American people through the Trump administration in preparation for a technological revolution that's going to occur over the next 5 to 20 years. But instead of getting a communist infrastructure that is going to pay you a UBI, you are going to take part in dividend returns that are going to increase each year, that more and more infrastructure is built, more and more resources are utilized. That money flows back to you, the American people. That's huge. That's why I think they're moving towards that 50-year mortgage model, because in the 50-year time period, the recompensation of that interest is actually given back to you. So yeah, you pay a lot of interest up front, but the recompensation comes about through the dividend returns over time. And if you pay off your house faster, you get more return over time. That's pretty fucking genius, guys. I'm running out of time here. I think I had we're not going to get into the rare earth stuff. Oh, we'll listen to Eric Trump here in 1 second. And let me see. Yeah, we got a little bit more to go through. So let's go through this. I got to zoom out to zoom in, if that makes any sense. I got to zoom out to zoom in. And man, we're killing it tonight. Look at this. We got, I want to say here, we got 1,800 on Rumble. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to check those Rumble reps. We got more time here. We got, how much we got? We got like 800 on X. What's up, X? Hope you guys are all doing well out there. I want to go to Rumble real quick, see if we have any rants or anything that came in. It's okay if we didn't, guys. I understand. Doesn't look like we had anything come in on Rumble, but you guys are rocking that chat. Hey, guys on Rumble, don't forget, we need to get those thumbs up. We need to get us trending over there on that leaderboard. I think that we missed it the last few weeks. So let's go ahead and get us trending there. Yeah, no more Rumble rants have come in, but that's fine. All right. China blocks U.S. military from getting rare earth magnets. I love this. China's cooking up a plan to cut off the U.S. military from some seriously important stuff, rare earth elements. We talked about this just a few weeks ago, and I was talking about this with the structure of the deal. Originally, when China came out and they negated the sale of rare earth minerals and metals to Western nations, they did it on the context of military purposes. Basically, they reserved the right to sell rare earth minerals and metals to any foreign nation, specifically if they have military needs for them and they consider that nation an adversary. So, if you don't know what they are, they're used in everything from smartphones and military tech. China's new system, if you're linked to the U.S. military, you don't get rare earth magnets. These are making they are making sure their precious magnets don't end up in American weapons. But don't worry, they're still happy to send them to non-military companies. It's like a VIP list, except the U.S. military isn't invited. Now, this comes about, why? Because the United States of America has implemented regulations and policies, including agreements with their allies and trade deal partners. Remember, Trump is going out to renegotiate in the world. It's not all about tariffs. The other aspect that fits into this is kind of the military projection of power. What do I mean by that? Is Trump's going out there and he's saying, hey, we have all of these cool technologies that are being developed, chipsets for artificial intelligence. We're not selling them to China. Don't sell them to China. You want to do business in the United States of America? Don't sell that shit to China. So China's coming back and saying, hey, rare earth magnets, don't sell them to the United States of America. Tit for tat. Game theory. Decision making. There will be a deal on this at some point in time. I assure you. But there's other things that are occurring right now. And there's two proposing theories. So SoftBank, which, by the way, is said they're going to invest over $3 trillion in the United States of America over the course of the next 10 years. They just sold their entire $5.83 billion stake in NVIDIA, which is one of the largest chip makers in the world. So this move is actually a good case for AI, right? So there's a few different theories. One is that SoftBank needs money for investment capital in the AI projects, so they're selling off their NVIDIA stake in order to do this. And they probably have other ancillary investments in the NVIDIA. But here's another idea to think about in this sense. So SoftBank dumped, hold on, I gotta get a sip here. SoftBank dumped that $5.8 billion worth of NVIDIA 24 hours before Japan declared Taiwan a red line. Now, this is important. October 2025, SoftBank silently exits the entire NVIDIA position. 32.1 million shares, $5.8 billion gone. And this comes from Shinaka Angelem Pereira on X. And that's Shinaka86 on X. And thanks, buddy, for posting this, because I think that you're spot on right with this. So SoftBank silently exits NVIDIA. November 10th, Japan's prime minister declares Taiwan attack would trigger emergency status for Japan's self-defense forces mobilized. China erupts in protest. Coincidence? Insider knowledge, or the smartest exit move in tech history. Masayoshi Son, who is the just walked away from the company that gained 37% this year. That's Masayoshi Son is the president CEO there of SoftBank. The chip monopoly printing $96 billion quarterly, the AI infrastructure backbone. He chose OpenAI instead. The geopolitical powder keg. So 90% of NVIDIA's chips come from TSMC. TSMC sits in Taiwan. Taiwan sits 100 miles from China. Japan's prime minister just told Beijing that crossing that strait means war. China called it a serious violation, not a diplomatic note, a threat. One invasion, one blockade, 50% of the global semiconductor output vanishes. $10 trillion in economic damage. NVIDIA loses the entire supply chain overnight. The math that changes everything. SoftBank profit, $1.83 billion on the sale. Reallocation target, $200 billion AI fund focused on OpenAI. That's what we were just talking about in that last story. NVIDIA forward profit versus equity 60x. Built entirely on AI growth assumptions. TSMC dependency, 90% of advanced GPU manufacturing. So the escalation probability after the prime minister's statements is about 62%. Decoupling application factor is about a 2.26 volatility surge. So what the CEO of SoftBank sees that you don't. AI value is fracturing. Hardware concentrates in Taiwan's kill zone. Software scales globally without geographic choke points. OpenAI trains models anywhere. NVIDIA chips only exist if TSMC survives. Japan just drew a line in Pacific Battle Line. SoftBank exited the hardware trap 1 month early. So 1.2 billion jobs face AI displacement by 2030. Generational inequality coefficient surges 15 points. Meanwhile, the chip enabling this transformation depends on a 23 million person island in China's crosshairs. Huge. Sun sold his concentrated risk and he bought optionality. Massive. And number two is there's another part of this. I think this move by SoftBank actually has to do not with TSMC, but with the United States of America. Why he's pulling out of NVIDIA is because he's financing and funding the production of TSMC manufacturing facilities in Arizona. And SoftBank is behind that. And I think a lot of this capital reallocation is going into that. So it's strategic for many different parts because it's decentralizing chipset making, 95% controlled in the island of Taiwan, away from China and moving it towards the United States of America, centered within the infrastructure of the United States of America. Now, this is also interesting because did you know that your U.S. tax dollars funded Chinese labs researching how to dominate the rare earth minerals trades that set the ground for the Belt and Roads Initiative? Yeah, that's true. Check this out.
Well, I'm going to make that sentence even more interesting. I don't know if simp has ever been used in the same context as the Thucydides trap, but we're going to go there. But, they treat it, right, like it's, as you would say, a law of physics that you have, a rising power and then you have the United States. There's going to be some form of conflict. And they always sort of use that paradigm to explain how China is going to eventually overtake the United States. But I've never liked that because there's sort of this passive, agency and autonomyless view of what the United States can do to prevent that conflict. And people like David Sachs, people like Jensen Huang, that sort of ilk, not even the outright pro-China collaborating faction, but the sort of euphemistic wishy-washy crowd, those are the people who make that trajectory, the replacement of the United States, not in a unipolar world order, but us being replaced effectively by the Chinese Communist Party, not just a nightmare, but they make it reality. And I think some of the words we've heard from President Trump talking about Chinese students, most recently with Laura Ingraham, are quite concerning. I would argue that we need to be at a Manhattan Project level of not just decoupling from the Chinese Communist Party, but understanding the hybrid, unrestricted warfare that we're at with them, and how it is American useful idiots who are getting very wealthy off of collaborating with China, and it's our tax dollars that are propping up the same apparatus and ecosystems that are now being weaponized against us. Case in point, everything to do, with the rare earths. I would just add, making America great again is not about turning Jensen Huang into, a kleptocratic trillionaire or David Sachs into a kleptocratic, decamillionaire. But the rare earth one, I think, is a really interesting example, sort of what you were talking about with, us, the taxpayers, not seeing any upside to where our money is going to every corner of the earth. But in this case, it's actually funding our demise. I uncovered several studies and research into rare earths being done essentially at China's top lab, their kind of state key laboratory for what they call rare earth materials and chemistry. It was founded by China's sort of grandfather of all their rare earth tech. It's this laboratory that has allowed them to really consolidate, monopolize, and ultimately weaponize so much of the global rare earth supply, but also the refinement capabilities of it. It's super granular research. If I read you the titles of the papers, my eyes would bug out, and I'm sure yours would too. So you can read it on there. They're showing the article on the screen. But the Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, and even the Office of Naval Research and the Naval Research Laboratory have been sending our tax dollars to research that is being concurrently conducted between American researchers and their counterparts at this Chinese Communist Party-run laboratory that is really a central node in their efforts to shore up these resources.
And I'm pretty sure, because this story is out now, that that's going to stop really fast. Because, in other words, U.S. taxpayer dollars are funding Chinese research into rare earth mineral domination, of how to get more and extract more out of the earth and the soil at the same time when they're withholding it militarily from the United States of America. That doesn't pan out well in the end. So Trump will utilize that as a point of negotiation or a direct pullout from that, which China will have to fund their own research initiatives, which I don't think they'll mind doing. But there's another key point here, and this is something that I talked about because it was something that came up in the China discussion just a few days ago. $44 billion Alaska pipeline ready to feed Asia. The Glenfran Group and Baker Hughes just signed definitive agreements to build a 807-mile pipeline connecting Alaska's northern slope to the Nikinsky liquefaction plant. The massive infrastructure project targets Asia markets hungry for American energy. So Energy Secretary Chris Wright and his Interior Secretary Doug Burgum calling it a win for U.S. energy security and Alaska jobs. Now, why is this important? Because in part of the proposal deal with China just last week was with China buying U.S. energy. Donald Trump has forced China's hand. Venezuela, Iran, and Russia, trying to cut them off from cheap oil that China is utilizing to dominate the tech field and market and AI development and wartime building strategies. Because Donald Trump's going in there with negotiated purposes, rare earth minerals on the table, oil becomes a negotiating buy factor. What this does is it produces a scenario of mutually assured economic destruction. If China becomes dependent on U.S. oil and the U.S. becomes dependent on Chinese rare earth minerals and metals, we have a point of economic mutually assured destruction to where if kinetic conflict ever did happen, it wouldn't last very long. Because neither side can sustain a kinetic conflict when each other's military is dependent upon the resources of the other country. In other words, it makes us strategic partners in economic trade and basically mitigates any adversarial reaction that could come about through global conflict. Pretty fucking huge. Man, this fucking show flew by, didn't it? Okay, we're going to go in here. I got to do this one real quick. Let's be clear, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging. It's here, and the latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform. They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there. Want in on the action? Head to crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again. All right, rock and roll. Let me check Rumble real quick one more time. Guys, I got to head over here to Badlands because I'm going to be going on my other show, DEFCON 0. I think that you guys have all heard DEFCON 0, right? You guys know what DEFCON 0 is. And so my chat out there, if I can do this right, I think I can figure this out. I've been meaning to try this to see if I could do this. And I'm going to go all Rumble. I'm going to go /raid. Nope, that didn't work. How the hell do we do this? /raid. And you put that link in there. And I think that it raids that. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I've been trying to figure out how to do a raid. And I'm not very smart, apparently, on Rumble. Alpha is like trying to teach me how to do it, but it wasn't working. But let me see if I can do it here like this. So I'm going to raid everybody on Rumble on over there. And other than that, guys, I'm going to see you guys on Badlands here in just a few minutes. I'll see everybody else tomorrow night. If you don't join us on Badlands, I'm going to leave you here tonight with a brilliant song. And this is what I would like. This is my veteran song. So much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night, guys. And we'll see you guys next time. Good night.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. are served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a last prize. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time, there was a time. Now is the time. Do it, Q.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!